Justin Herbert, rookie this year, and he's an amazing company right now. He tied the rookie touchdown record with 27 touchdowns. He passed Andrew Luck's rookie record because he's thrown 300 plus passing yards 7 times already. And I mean, this guy looked phenomenal against the Raiders. I know the Chargers, Anthony Lynn only called like one passing play for him in the whole fourth quarter, but regardless, Justin Herbert led a game-winning drive, and they won in overtime. And I guess we'll just talk a little bit about Justin Herbert accomplishing this rare feat.
Yeah, he's been incredibly impressive. And you look back at the draft, and even last year when he was projected to come out and people were talking about him going to the Giants, I know that I myself, I wasn't too high on him, because when you looked at his tape at Oregon, he showed flashes of greatness, but then he also showed there were some plays that raised some major red flags, and it was concerning, thinking what would translate to the next level. But it just goes to show that the system that he was in Oregon was not very conducive to the player that he was, and now you see him coming into the NFL, and even though his record hasn't reflected, he's having an incredible season, and he showed all the tools to be not only a franchise quarterback, but a future top 5 quarterback in the league. And speaking towards that win-loss total, a lot of people have held it against him, but you compare him and Tua, and while Tua has had more success in the win column, Justin Herbert's defense has been one of the worst in the league. His play calling has not been great all season long, and his playmakers offensively have been on and off the field with injuries all year. His offensive line has been patchwork all season long. So I can't wait to see how his career progresses, because he's showing all the signs early on of being an absolute stud, and the Chargers got a steal. I believe they got him at 6, right? Right
at
after
6.
Tua at
Yep.
5. So.
And I agree completely with what you said. I mean, when you talk about Justin Herbert, he's a prime example of somebody who had all the physical tools, but teams were very hesitant on taking him because his tape wasn't very good. The same thing happened with Josh Allen. And I think that can kind of show teams that, okay, even if a player doesn't show that he's the most polished player in college, even if he has his physical attributes, you should take a chance on him if you believe in your coaching staff that much. Because Justin Herbert, he doesn't have the greatest coaching staff, but it's good enough. They're not good situationally, but Anthony Lynn is a good motivator. Pep Hamilton, we talked about him as a quarterback's coach. So that should raise a flag to a lot of teams that, hey, maybe we shouldn't go out for a guy like Justin Fields, who's the most productive in the class, outside of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should take a chance on a Trey Lance that's 6'4", and he fills out all the physical attributes, but he just doesn't have the best tape out of all the other guys. I mean, Justin Herbert was phenomenal against the Raiders. I mean, he had 314 yards, 3 total touchdowns, 121 quarterback rating, and a game-winning drive. And for the year, he has 3,781 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 96.3 quarterback rating, 68.6 QBR. So this guy has kept the Chargers in nearly every single game. And after losing a Hall of Fame quarterback in Phillip Rivers in free agency, they drafted Justin Herbert. Tyrod's supposed to fill that void. Tyrod gets hurt. And the Chargers really haven't missed a beat, even though they lost a Hall of Famer in Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised at all to see them be a playoff team next year. I don't think they're that far away. I know they're a 4-9 team, I think, at this point, or 5-9 team at this point in the season. But with that being said, you look at what they have on this roster, and they have been hurt in a bunch of ways this year, but the talent that they have is not one of their deficiencies. They've had a lot of great players dealing with injuries this season that they're going to hopefully get back healthy next year. Hopefully they're going to clear house this offseason, get a new coaching staff in there, and if they can do that and stay healthy next season, there's no reason they can't be a playoff team with Justin Herbert at the helm.
And I totally agree, and we'll talk about the Raiders game just a little bit. I mean, it was a very weird a range of events. I mean, you have Marcus Mariota come in, and he looks like the second overall pick that he once was. Then you have Badgley missing 2 field goals, 1 for 3, and this guy is one of the most inconsistent kickers in the league. I think he's missed the most field goals in the NFL. Chris Harris Jr., right when you think the Raiders are going to go and score, he gets that interception, and it was just total chaos. I think that game was just about which team wanted to lose more. It felt like no team was really trying to win.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the best games that Marcus Mariota has played in the league since being drafted. So although it might have seemed like, Derek Carr gets injured and they're bringing in the backup, it's a give me for the Chargers. Marcus Mariota played really well, in my opinion, for just stepping in on the field, not having thrown a ball in 2 seasons as a starting quarterback in the league. He played really well, and he gave Justin Herbert all that he could handle. It's not like this was a rollover win for the Chargers, and Herbert drove them down the field in overtime with no problem.
I mean, we look at what I wanted to talk about is that a lot of when we compare the rookie quarterbacks, what I've been hearing when they compare Tua and Herbert or whoever else, right now it's really Tua and Herbert. They talk about Herbert's receivers, but frankly, even when Keenan Allen or Mike Williams aren't healthy, I mean, this guy against the Raiders was throwing to Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton, and they were balling.
Yeah.
And he targets a lot of guys outside of Williams and Allen, and he still makes them look better than they are. So that argument about like who has better receivers or who doesn't, I don't think it holds up, because we've seen Justin Herbert maximize receivers that nobody really knows.
And it just comes down to watching the tape. When you watch these guys play, Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa, I still think that those two guys can be great quarterbacks, especially Joe Burrow. I think the Bengals found their guy in Joe Burrow, but Justin Herbert has popped off the tape. There's no other way of looking at it.
The best
throws
quarterback
that he's made have been far and away better than what those other two guys have shown. And that's not an indictment of, who's going to be the best player. There's a lot of time to determine that. But just based on what we've seen in their rookie season, Justin Herbert has made plays far better than what we've seen out of Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. He's much better down the field, making big-time throws. And yes, that's led to a few more mistakes, but you can accept that in an offense where you need to score to win football games. It's not like Tua, where the defense has been so good, they can afford to keep him on a leash in that playbook and play conservatively and still win football games. And Joe Burrow, I feel like they still kind of held him back a little bit this year, and I don't know if he's able to make those throws yet. I still think he has some growth left in him. But Justin Herbert has come out of the gates firing. They have not held back at all with him, and he has led this team. They've lost the most one-score games in football, so he's kept them in every game despite how bad the defense has been.
So just a quick question. How many touchdowns do you think Justin Herbert finishes? Or this is a better question. Do you think Justin Herbert finishes with 30 passing touchdowns this season?
Yeah, he's at 27.
He has 27. Right, he faces the Broncos, who are a pretty good defense, and then the Chiefs.
I think I 100% think he does.
I think he does too.
He might get it next week.
I think he'll finish with 30-plus touchdowns too.
Because even if he doesn't get it next week, the Chiefs, while their defense is good, their offense is so high-powered, and they should score on the Chargers at will. So Justin Herbert's going to be on the field a decent amount. So I can definitely see him finding 3 touchdowns somewhere within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And if you guys are watching right now, comment whether you think Herbert will finish with 30-plus touchdowns or not.